So here was the plan. Fly to Ghana, take Dad's ashes home, meet the family. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. Hey guys, I'm Jaquest and welcome back to Hidden Roots. In this episode, find out how my once-in-a-lifetime trip to Ghana almost ended before it even began, and how my dad's ashes, which I planned to take back to Ghana with me, didn't make it onto the flight at all. Originally, I was meant to fly out to Ghana in October, but life got in the way. I was busy with gigs and then a UK tour came in. So October became November, November turned into December, and then just before Christmas, I got offered a New Year's Eve gig with a band out in Qatar. And I asked them if instead of flying me back to London after the gig, they'd fly me to Ghana instead. And they said yes. So after months of planning and trying to find the right time, everything just came together very last minute. Sometimes you just gotta go with it. Just after a week after being confirmed for this New Year's Eve gig, I was flying out to Qatar to perform there and then flying on to Accra in Ghana the next day. Looking back at how everything unfolded, I realized I could probably have done with some more time to plan everything, but hindsight is 2020. I've been holding on to Dad's ashes for over a decade. I've never really known what to do with them. He loved the garden back in Wolverhampton, and I thought about scattering him there, but something in the back of my mind always told me to hold off. Then when I met my cousin Edward for the first time, he told me about this plot back in Ghana where all of Dad's brothers and sisters were buried, and it clicked for me that this was the place that I'd been waiting for, and this is where I needed to take his ashes back to. I spoke to my cousin John, and he offered to put a plan together to welcome Dad's remains back to Ghana when I arrived. That was the plan anyway. A couple of days before I left for my New Year's Eve gig in Qatar, I was talking to a friend of mine, Rachel, about my plans for Ghana and taking Dad's ashes back with me. And she was like, "Oh, I'm surprised it's so easy for you to just take ashes onto a flight without getting any prior permission or anything like that." And I was like, "Oh, like why would you need that? It's just something I can put in the hand luggage or in the hold, right?" And she said, "I'd probably check that out." So I went onto the airline website and there it was in black and white, no human remains allowed on flights without a whole bunch of paperwork, including death certificate, cremation certificate, a whole bunch of paperwork that I didn't have. I couldn't delay the flight to Qatar because I had to go out there for my New Year's Eve gig, and I couldn't risk taking the ashes with me just in case anything happened and they got taken off me, which I couldn't even imagine, so I was pretty screwed. With only a few days to go before my trip to Qatar, I had to change my plans. I'd have to leave Dad's ashes in London, apply for the paperwork once I was in Qatar, and then see if I could find a way of getting his ashes over to Ghana once I arrived. It wasn't ideal, but I didn't have another option. So I flew to Qatar, not knowing whether any of the other paperwork would arrive in time and not knowing if there was going to be a way of getting Dad's ashes to Ghana at all. New Year's Eve was a blur. I arrived with the rest of the band on the 30th, we had our gig the next evening, and by the 1st I was heading back to the airport to get on a plane to Accra. With no ashes, not much of a plan, and a whole bunch of anxiety about what to do next. I arrived in Accra early the next morning. As I got off the plane, the air was hot and dry. This was Ghana in the middle of the Harmattan, the season that blows in from the Sahara Desert across West Africa and into the Atlantic. It was as if the winds carried with them the stories of my ancestors, their struggles and triumphs swirling in the haze. And as I stood there under the golden sun, it felt like the journey was just beginning. Not just a journey through a country, but through history, heritage, and self-discovery. Well, that's how it should have felt. Those warm, fuzzy feelings of triumph and self-discovery soon turned into despair once I reached border security. So I'd made some plans for my trip to Ghana, but everything came in so last minute, and the New Year's Eve gig was only confirmed a few days before Christmas, so there was super limited time to get everything organized, and I hadn't really thought much beyond my first few days in Accra. This was where my free-spirited planning met with the harsh realities of border control. What happened next was an unwelcome and unexpected surprise that nearly had me on the next flight out of Accra before I'd even gotten through the airport. If you're enjoying my attempts to get into Ghana, give the video a like, and if you're not, feel free to drag me in the comments. Either way, stick around to see how things went. A whole bunch of drama at the airport because when I arrived, I didn't realise that I needed to have a yellow fever vaccination certificate with me. So I arrived at the border security at Accra airport, and they're like, great, yeah, can you give us your COVID certificate and your yellow fever vaccination booklet? And I was like, yellow what? And they're like, you have to be vaccinated against yellow fever to enter Ghana, do you not have that? And I was like, I don't have that. I know that I got it done years ago. I definitely got the vaccination, but I didn't even think to look before I came. So I just turned up and they were like, you're gonna need to get another yellow fever shot. So I had to go and get my yellow fever shot, go into like a little back room, get injected and get that sorted and pay for that. And then I went back to the desk and they're like, great, you've got yellow fever. Yeah, okay. So now all we need is your visa. And I was like, your what? I haven't got a visa either. Time to go back to the office. I haven't really planned this trip as well as I could have done. Hands up, I'll admit it. So yeah, apparently I was supposed to have a visa and didn't have a visa. So they were like, okay, we can probably get that sorted, but it's gonna cost you $150 to get it sorted at the airport. I did think for a little while that I was actually going to get deported immediately, which would have been not ideal. So I'm glad that that didn't happen. A bit of a shaky start, shakier than I would have liked, but this whole trip has been so last minute. Yeah, it's fine. We move. It's all good. I've made it into the country. I haven't been deported, so I don't have to stress too much.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
Yes, this was a little embarrassing. I won't lie. But I was vaccinated, sent back to border control with my visa and yellow fever vaccination certificate, and finally allowed into Accra. I jumped in a taxi and made my way into town to the hostel where I was going to be spending the next week. On the way, I got chatting to the taxi driver who was keen to tell me all about the country and what to expect.
There's no problem in Ghana. A very peaceful country.
I've heard great things. I hear all the good things. All my friends keep coming here.
Yes, very peaceful.
Yeah.
Very peaceful.
He put the radio on to hit me with some Ghanaian high life classics. We got British boy band. Not what I had in mind, but still a tune. It was day one in Ghana and I'd managed to survive my first mini crisis. I had the wind in my hair and blew on the radio. It would surely be smooth sailing from here. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss next week's episode and to find out if I was right to be so confident about the future.